then you could just sit basically with a block between your heels, or you can sit on the heels. Okay, but get comfortable initially because we know most of our practice has to do with challenging the body, and by nature that is uncomfortable. And so not minding that right now, just let your eyes closed and find how you're sitting on the block or on your heels. It's one thing that your sitting bones make contact with whatever they're on, but then we also have to make contact with what the sitting bones are doing. And because one of the premises of yoga is to undermine dysfunctional physical habits, you may notice that you're sitting a little bit more towards one sitting bone than the other. So there's just this implicit habit that's always kind of undermining our yoga. And part of knowing where our habits reside is the job of unraveling them and replacing bad habits with good ones. So distribute your weight equally across the ischial tuberosities. Relax your forehead, relax your eyes, relax your shoulders down. And just for a moment, become aware of not so much the physical body, not so much the external way that we connect to the world through the sense of hearing, touching, smelling, seeing, tasting, but through this other sphere of experience that's actually more near and dear to our life. So we made contact with this internal landscape of emotion, the internal landscape of the feeling of your breath, the feeling of your just energetic state. And this is outlined in yoga as pratyahara, interiorization, the ability to be aware of what's on the inside, as it were. And somebody once made a pretty nice statement about what art is. Art is the ability to externalize the interior and internalize the exterior. And now having gained some, even if it seems very minimal, some amount of quietude in the body and the mind, make sure that when your eyes start to open, you kind of peek them open very slowly so as not to let too much light flood in all at once. So it's as if you're still kind of entertaining a sleepy face look. And then still sitting very appropriately on the sitting bones. Let's just turn to the right to get a little bit of extra mobility. And by the way, if you want to keep your eyes closed for the twist here, keep them closed. And as just a working model for the rest of our yoga practice, not just today, but for the next however many decades that we all have left, there is a frontier, this kind of like a final frontier of effort in the practice where we want to be able to close our eyes and do the actions, do what's required. And so if we start class with a little bit less outwardness, even just in the sense of vision, that we can get a better handle on how our practice makes us feel. Because when we're talking about how our practice makes us feel, we're not talking about how things smell, we're not talking about how things taste, we're not talking about how things sound, right? We're talking about how it actually feels. You know, who is the person that I am after I finish a practice versus before. And come back to center, turn to the left. The most important part to realize about progress in yoga, kind of the most elementary and rudimentary understanding, is that if we come off the mat better, however seemingly minimally better, it's still better. And better is always a cause for reverence. It's always a cause for some celebration. Because it's easy to not want to improve. It's easy to just get to a certain age and basically stay at that age. 2 more breaths. Make sure that you're not over pulling with the right arm, having the twist. We're just, again, creating a little bit more flexibility, breaking up some of the tension that has to do with sleeping and perhaps not moving yet today. Inhale, come back to center, and we'll do one more. We're going to take a side bend. So you're going to place your left hand out to the left and make sure that your hand is in line with the hip. So that is to say, in line with the shoulder. Crawl your left fingers over to the left. And once you detect your right sitting bone coming off of the block or your heel, lift your right arm up. Then plant your left palm down firmly. And as you reach your right arm overhead and you start to really go into the side bend, it's perfectly acceptable to start bending your elbow. And eventually where we can get to is having the hand far enough away that you could bend your elbow and get the forearm all the way down without just tilting off of the seat, off of your platform, your sitting bones. And as you arch your arm over your head, and you're exposing the right side of the body, start to kind of feel into that little bit of landscape. And it's not really that little. So as you inhale, as you try to inhale a little bit more, notice what this provides for the right side of the body. And as you inhale and you try to inhale a little bit deeper, a little bit more robustly, how does that start to really penetrate into this whole right sheath of the body? There's a misunderstanding that I know many people have, and I've heard questions about this over and over again. The misunderstanding is that our skin and our muscles are somehow separate from other facets of our life and our body. Let's take one more breath out. Inhale, come back to center, and then right hand down. Keep your right hand in line with right hip. And then crawling your right fingertips over to the right until you feel your left sitting bone lift off the block or the heel, at which point you lift your left arm up. And as you arch your left arm overhead, try to keep your elbow more on the straight path. It's okay to bend it a little bit, just don't let it completely kick, because then you lose that whole line of tension, and tension is exactly the reason that we're doing this movement right now. So reaching your left arm over to the right, press with your right hand. So try to imagine pressing your hand like you're pushing the floor over and away from you, thereby placing more emphasis of weight on your left sitting bone. And as you do that, you'll feel a little bit more increase in the tone and the tension of the left side of the body. So for the next 3 breaths, try to again just infiltrate this left sheath of your body. You might feel this as much as like a skin stretch, which is also happening. It's a muscle stretch. And everything on any side of the body connects all the way down through all the structures that are on that side of the body. So you're also getting more movement, more breath penetrated into your ribs, technically into your bone tissue, and as well as the lungs and the organs, including the kidneys that are over here on the left. Last breath out. Inhale, come back to center. Well done. Now come forward onto your hands and knees, and then start to set up your first downward dog without too much aggression right at first. We have plenty of time in our practice to turn up that dial. And so right now we're still playing with this sphere of understanding, the sphere of feeling, the interior. How do our postures, our physical movement, how does it start to bleed into the life of our conscious experience? This is why we do yoga, isn't it? It's not just to feel, oh, now I'm a little sweatier, and a little more tired, my muscles may be a little bit more sore, or that I'm just more flexible, there is a palpable result that we feel when we're done with practice. So getting a little bit more fine-tuned in downward dog, start to reset the width, the space between your fingertips, and embed the base of the index finger and middle finger into the floor. Like literally embed it, even if it has to be at the expense of your pinky finger. So even just for fun, because that's how we have fun, try to lift your pinky fingers up a little bit, right? Like a proper way of drinking tea. So you got your tea fingers in downward dog. And as far as the legs go, set your feet back far enough so it becomes very challenging to get the heels down. And if they're not down, not to stress about it. Just try to lift your toes and start to ignite the quality of your thighs. And you'll see that when your kneecaps lift up, you'll know your quads are engaged. And then you can start to kind of churn up the heat on that quad engagement because that's going to start to peel the tension out of the hamstrings. Take one more deep breath in. As you start your exhale, bend your knees, lift your heels, walk or step your feet forward to the hands. And then inhale, lengthen the torso and a half lift. Take it easy on the first one. Exhale, fold. Be gracious on the first fold. Let's do a couple more of these. Inhale, lift and lengthen. And then keep that lift and lengthening spirit in the torso as you fold it. Close your eyes. Next one, inhale, lengthen. Sitting bones back, chest away. Exhale, sitting bones up as your chest goes down. One more time. Big inhale, big half lift, long torso. Exhale, fold. Good. Now let's try this. Keep your eyes closed. Place your hands on your hips. Come to a half lift position with your torso, but keep your eyes closed. Keep the hands on the hips. Lift your toes. Strengthen your legs. And from this internalized, eye closed position, dimension, stand up to your full upright mountain pose. And then release your arms down. Good. Taking that right into some sun salutation. So as you inhale, lift your arms up, lift your eyes up if your neck is okay with it. And as you exhale, fold forward, paying explicit respects to the action of the legs. Inhale, lengthen, extend your chest, sitting bones back. Exhale, plant your palms, step back to high plank. And then slowly lower down through your chaturanga, unless you want to come to the floor on the first one. Take it easy on the first upward dog or cobra. And use your belly button retraction as you exhale to pull yourself back to downward dog. Great. And then relax your neck, drop your head. Reset your hands. And notice if the habit, and it's not just a habit of your hand that will determine how much weight keeps getting placed on the outer edge of your hand, but it's actually more of a habit of the shoulders. Keeping the neck relaxed, keep your eyes soft. And it wasn't that long ago that we were just sitting and checking in. And you can always do this in your practice. You can cross-reference, how is the pose that I'm currently in different or same in that internal sense of feeling and consciousness? How is it different from the beginning? And tracking our practice and the effects that it has on our psycho-emotional life is really to get into a better relationship with it, so we can see that the practice has an effect all across every dimension of life, and it's not just for the muscles and the bones only. On your inhale, lift your heels up. Exhale, bend your knees, walk, step, or hop forward. And then inhale, lengthen, lift your toes, strengthen your legs. As you exhale and fold, really grip your quadriceps. And maybe with your eyes closed still, but maybe just minimally open. Inhale, stand all the way back up with a nice open chest. Hands come together at the very peak of your inhale. And exhale, arms come down. Again, inhale, arms up, eyes up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lengthen. Keep your legs sturdy, keep your feet active. Exhale, plant your palms. Stay in this high plank for a moment when you come back. And get that same dome shape that we've been working on for the last several practices. So start to really push up through the top of the spine by projecting your arms down. And you'll start to get into a better sense of what that means when your shoulder blades start to slide right around the side of your ribs. So you're pushing that upper part of your thoracic spine higher and higher towards the ceiling, but keep your eyes set about 10, 12 inches forward to the fingertips. With your pelvis, do the opposite of sticking your butt out. So slightly pull it in, which will keep your core in. And on your next exhale, come down to your low plank. And then inhale, engage your glutes at this point as you go to upward dog. And exhale, coming back to downward dog. So there is this distribution of proper actions that have to take place between whether we're in chaturanga, upward dog, or downward dog. And it really is the ability to be either quadricep dominant or hamstring dominant. Or let's say quadricep and hip flexor dominant or hamstring and glute dominant. And when we're in downward dog, it really is all about your quadriceps. And the degree that we can engage the quadriceps really starts to align with the degree of flexibility we get in the hamstrings. Keep the nice composure of the first start of the class on your face. As you inhale, lift the heels. Exhale, bend your knees, walk or step forward. And then inhale, really broaden your ribs as you lengthen. And exhale, try to contract your ribs and your abdomen when you fold. And then a big inhale almost automatically lifts you up. It's like when you get air into a system, it floats to the top of water. Exhale, bring your arms down. Last one, big inhale, big toe lift, big toe spread. Exhale, fold. Good. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, plant your palms. Maybe lower down to this low plank slowly enough so you can simultaneously get to the bottom of the exhale as you do to the bottom of your low plank. And then when we come back to downward dog, again, downward dog is just this constant stopover in meditation. Good. Now start to work into a little bit further into your arms by projecting your arms down so that in turn, this whole line of your spine, your torso, projects up. So if you could measure it, you would actually detect that your sitting bones are progressively getting closer to the ceiling the more invested you become in the function and action of your arms. And partly what your arms are fed by is the action of your fingers. Because when we think of arm, we have to think of the whole thing. Fingers are a part of the arm and the shoulders are part of the arm. And they have to work in concert in order to actually be effective and work the way that they need to work. Next inhale, lift the heels up. Exhale, bend your knees. Make sure as you exhale and bend the knees, you exhale to the end. Walk or step forward to your hands. And then inhale again, broaden the torso forward and to the sides. Exhale, contract the torso, make it narrow. And inhale, as you come up, your torso broadens all at the same time at its broadest when your hands finally connect. And go right into a little detour on the B's. So bend your knees on the inhale. Utkatasana. Sit yourself back on the heels for a couple more breaths. And not just the heels, so if you have a good sense of where your heels are and whether your weight is penetrating down through them, start to work more towards the inner edges of your heels, which will be assisted by lifting the little toes. One more breath in. Exhale, straighten your legs and fold forward. Inhale, nice and long. Watch those inner heels, friends. Exhale, plant your palms, step back. And as we know, after this upward dog, as you exhale, come back to downward dog. Step your right foot forward, but get your knee to your nose for a breath or two first. And step your foot forward through quietly, and then come on up. Begin with the hands on the hips. Make sure that your left leg is firm and steady. And start courting a more horizontal position with your front leg. And so that becomes a little bit less tenable, let's say, the more you try to straighten your back leg. So stay consistent with the front and stay very active in the back. In all lunges, warrior poses, your back leg is your engine, your front leg is like more of your steering wheel. Lift your arms up. Good. Now, you're going to bring your hands and your torso down with your hands on the floor, still maintain in the lunge. Lift your right arm up for just a nice, easy twist to start. And of course, there's twists that are easier, but what is meant by easy or simple twist, as it is sometimes called, is that it's easier on the spine. It's not as invasive in terms of pressure because your spine is horizontal. Take one more breath out. And as you exhale, bring your right arm down, step your right leg back, and exhaling down to your chaturanga, get to the very pit of your lungs. Well done. Coming out of upward dog, step your left foot forward, but try to get contact of your left knee to your nose, forehead, or mouth. And then step it through quietly so that you can't even hear it, and come on up to your high lunge. And again, hands on the hips just to get your landing gear out, just to get the bearing on the feet and the legs. And feet are obviously the presiding ones because feet have to be prioritized because they are what really determines your balance. So get your front knee bent, keep the front thigh horizontal, straighten your back leg, and find how your right glute is part of that whole ensemble of straightening the back leg. So keep your right glute with you. Take one more breath in. Exhale, bring your hands down. Keep your right hand in place, lift your left arm up. And if you look down at your right hand, make sure that your middle finger is facing straight forward in the same direction as your left toes are. And that way you will help to protect your shoulder, because if you externally rotate your shoulder too much and bear weight on it, it predisposes it to instability. So you want to keep more of kind of a neutral rotation. And just project that right arm down in order to catapult your chest up. On the next inhale, bring your left hand down, step your left leg back, and then take your nice, sweet, long vinyasa. Take all the time you need. And it's always a breath cleanser. It's a good way to think about getting into the vinyasa. And because it's a breath cleanser or a breath reset, what does the respiratory system affect? Well, the big answer, the simple answer, is everything. So when you reset your respiratory system, you reset your physiology to some extent. You reset the way that your chemistry during the practice is constantly being assimilated by the body. And the chemistry that is really the most valuable, or at least the most palpable, is the chemistry, neurochemistry, the stuff that really affects how our mind is engaged and immersed in every little fraction of our body. Next inhale, lift the heels up. Exhale, bend your knees, walk, step, or hop forward. Inhale, lengthen the torso, lift your toes. Exhale, fold. Now let's find those inner heels again. As you first start to inhale, bend the knees into Utkatasana. Lift your arms up. 3 breaths here. So 2 things in the legs. Inner heel contact and squeezing the knees and thighs together. Just keep those 2 for 1 more breath. And then exhale, stand up straight, arms come down. And again we go. bend the knees, inhale, Utkatasana. Inner heels wedged into the earth, thighs squeezed together. Exhale, straighten your legs while folding. Make sure you let your torso narrow at the extent of the exhale. Inhale, lengthen, broaden the ribs and abdomen. Exhale, plant your palms, and then stepping back. Take your time to get this full course breath reset in the vinyasa, and then step your right foot forward with a quick little contact of the knee to the face. And you can go right into lifting your arms up for this. Okay, now keep your arms up, straighten your front leg. Keep the arms as much as you can right next to your head, close to your ears as you fold forward. So reach the hands, project the fingers away from you until your hands come down. And then just fold down on top of your front leg. And it's not so much that you have to get the belly to touch the leg. And we talked about this in the last class. If you walk your hands further away from the body, further forward, what you're procuring is actually more length in the spine. And that's far more important than just simply folding it down. So the way that we approach these priorities of movement has everything to do with the sustainability of the body throughout our life. Next pose, you're going to look forward in front of your right foot, bend your knee, come forward into a fingertip supported warrior three. So right into a balancing posture in the sun salutation, in this version of it. Okay, so keep your chest extended forward. Think of warrior three really as half lift, just one leg is lifted. Okay, now keeping the right hand on the mat, place your left hand on your hip, open up to balancing half moon, Ardha Chandrasana. There we go. Good. So in a sense, there's still this not so subtle, pretty tangible effect of half lift through the torso. So it's more on the continuum of extension, more on the continuum of back bending. From here, take a quiet step back into Trikonasana. Two more breaths in this. Use your right arm to actually lean more body weight into so that the right arm can distribute the way that your chest lifts. And on the next inhale, bend your front knee, bring your left hand down. The following exhale steps your right leg back and delivers you right into your low plank. After coming out of upward dog, step your left foot forward, get a little contact with the knee to the nose first, or as close as you can there too. There we go. And then arms overhead if you're right ready for it. Still keep, maybe not your physical eye, but your senses immersed and attached to the front leg. So you're always working to level off the front thigh. That's it. Good. Keep the front toes at ease as much as you can. Awesome. Next inhale, straighten the front leg. Keep your arms next to the head. Exhale, fold down. And as you fold, it really is, again, the job of your quadriceps to point your sit bones back. Walk your hands out in front of you. Drop your head. A universal thing that's easy to remember, easier at least than just knowing specifically how different each pose is. A universal concept is wherever the chest goes, wherever the head goes, we have to try to send the sitting bones the opposite direction. So if your head goes down, your sitting bones have to go up. If your head goes up, your sitting bones have to go down. And knowing that these two opposite polar ends of movement, that will allow you to create more space in the whole spinal column, because space is the thing that keeps it healthy and functioning. Look forward in front of your left foot, bend the knee, and then step forward into your fingertips supported warrior three. So keep the toes nice and easy on that left foot. Keep the right leg strong and really express the way that your chest accentuates back to that half lift position. Slowly open up to balancing half moon. And when we open up to half moon, what can happen sometimes is the orientation of the bottom foot will switch. Just make sure your bottom toes are still facing forward the way that they were in the previous lunge. Now try to keep your abdomen and chest in the same position. So again, it's this little semblance of half lift, even as you step back to triangle pose. So you don't shrink or fold, yes, just by stepping back. And lean slightly backwards here in triangle pose so that your left arm can start to understand what it's like to have you depend on it. And when your left arm is being depended on for balance, then it does its job better. And you don't even have to think about it as much. It's just a survival reflex that turns on. And that reflex is what we kind of harness to get what we need for the posture. One more breath in. As you exhale, bend your front knee, bring your right hand down, step the left leg back. And that same exhale delivers you right back to chaturanga. Congratulations. You've made it through possibly the longest sun salutation that's ever existed. And it happened here today for you. So history was made, and you were a part of it. So when you let your neck relax and let your head hang, soften your eyes, soften the composure on your face. You know, there's this thing that we're also susceptible to when we really start to effort. We don't notice how the effort starts to be displayed on the face. But we have to try to keep those separate, because if that effort and tension is displayed in your face then starts to feed tension neurologically. It feeds tension psycho-emotionally. So no matter how hard things are physically in our practice, the final frontier is to keep the face clear of any sign of that. Next inhale, lift the heels up. Exhale, bend the knees. Walk, step, or hop forward. Inhale, lengthen the torso. Exhale, fold the torso. Lovely. Big inhale as you bend the knees for Utkatasana. Squeeze your thighs together. Get those inner heels wedged into the floor. And then exhale, arms straight. Perfect. Last one. Bend the knees. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, straighten your legs, fold. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, plant your palms. Step back. Be very observant how you move through your vinyasas, because they are so common. Step your right foot forward, knee to head first. Again, we start in high lunge, of course. Definitely one of the best postures, standing postures in all of the possibilities that the human body can do. High lunge, unequivocally. Okay, so now you're going to turn to the right with your torso. Keep your arms parallel to the ground. Glorious. Use your left leg and left glute to help you pull your torso back a little bit more. That's it. Now keep the back leg, keep your sights on your back leg, lower down so you maintain the twist. Left hand on the mat, back to the easy twist. Keep your front toes up and watch how your inner front heel is playing the game of keeping itself down. So if you keep the front inner heel a little bit better connected, it really does start to send a different kind of message and responses up the leg and into the hip. On the next inhale, bring your right hand down. Keep the right hand there. Lower your left heel to the mat for Parsvakonasana, side angle pose. Good. Now we're going to go just a little bit extra. It's kind of a standing pose, kind of an arm balance. You're going to crawl your right hand to the right a little bit more. So bring your right hand further away from the foot. Good. And then you're going to step your right leg back to meet the left leg while balancing on the right arm, so you're completing side plank. So then we can see how there's this continuum that does exist between side plank arm action and side angle. If you're having way too much trouble balancing, just bring your top foot to the ground behind you, to the mat behind you. Otherwise, make sure all toes are pulling up towards the face and flaring. On the next exhale, bring your left hand down, and that same exhale presents you into the pits of chaturanga. And again, coming out of upper dog, step your left foot forward, get the knee to touch the face, a nice quiet step, and then high lunge from there. Good. Make sure that pretty much every high lunge you do in class, there's at least the aim of doing a little bit better than the last high lunge. So keep that front thigh level, keep the back leg straight, and then slowly turn to the left, keep your arms parallel to the ground. Engage your right glute more and use the function of your right glute to pull your torso to the back of the room a little closer. Not losing a speck of twist, slowly lower your right arm down. Keep the right fingertips facing straight forward, and then just project your left arm up. It's like you're catapulting your left arm in your chest from the from the origin of your right arm. And then you bring your left hand down to the outside of the foot, lower your right heel to the mat for side angle, Parsvakonasana again. And from this point, take your left hand a little bit further away from the left foot and lean back into it so you notice how you're supporting your weight already, and then step your left leg back. And then you're at your side plank. And of all postures, side plank has actually been researched. Of all postures that can help us strengthen the core, and especially lateral flexion and obliques, side plank registered as like really one of the superior postures that can make that happen. So let's take one more breath in it. And exhale, bring your right hand down while you're also lowering. So one exhale is activated through more than one posture. So this kind of polyarticular way of breathing through movement is how we make the movement and the breath a little bit more intelligent. And when you hang back in downward dog, again, relax your neck, drop your head, soften the jaw. We talked about this before as how do we clean up postures? And where we start is like all the gross stuff, like the legs, the arms, the stuff that you can see, the big stuff, so to speak. But then once the posture is completed, kind of like building a house, the last thing you do is you paint the house. So the last embellishment on the posture is that composure on your face. Okay, now inhale, lift the heels up. Exhale, bend your knees, walk, step, or hop forward. Inhale, lengthen halfway. Exhale, fold all the way. And then we're just going to stay in this posture. The only thing is separate your feet and interlace your fingers behind you and just pull your arms over your head. Now, it's up to you. If you need a little bit of a rest right now from sun salutations, you can partially turn your legs on and just work more on the shoulders. But if you can keep going, if you do have the energy to keep driving firmly at it, like any other forward bend, watch what your quadriceps do and notice the point when the quadriceps feel like they just kind of lose that action, or when your mind, your brain loses the contact to the quadriceps and how they react. As your arms pull overhead, it's going to tempt you to lean forward, and this is going to be more of a nuanced technique. Notice where you're standing on the heels more, if it's the heels or the forefoot, the ball of the foot. And start to lean more weight into the balls of your feet, toes, without taking the heels off the ground. So say 70-80% body weight on the roots of those toes. Keep the quads engaged, knees lifted, soft face, soft palate. Good, let's take 2 more breaths. Lovely. And then release your hands. Bring your hands to the mat. Step back. And let's just take one more vinyasa for fun. Perfect. Okay, now I want to work a little bit more today on hip extension. So go ahead, come down to your knees and then grab a block. And then also get yourself some wall space so that, like this, if you're kneeling and you have your toes against the wall, you want to make sure that your knee can touch a firm part of the wall. Okay, so you can watch the first one. Michelle's going to set up for us. She's going to step her right foot forward and actually get her toes all the way up against the wall. Not on the wall, not on the baseboard or anything, just toes right against it. Then you're going to take your block, and you know there's 3 different dimensions and sizes to the block. So find the size of the block that best keeps your knee set right above the heel and ankle. And you want that to be in contact just below the kneecap. So I'll bring this down a bit. And when you do this, I want you to just try to like really force your front leg into the block. And so that everybody can see, this is the part of the upper shin that I'm talking about. So it's not going to be your patella, it's going to be your tibial tuberosity, as it's called, this prominence right below the knee that has a nice, like, firm little platform on it, almost. Okay, so next part is we're going to practice lowering and lifting the back leg. So you're going to curl your back toes under. Okay, so you can do this pushing your hands against the wall in front of you, and that'll make things a little bit easier, maybe at first if you need that. But ideally, you want to be able to do this with the hands on the hips. So the front thigh should stay level the whole time, which means you can bring your left knee back a little bit further. So let's try that. Bring this left knee back. So either hands on the front knee, thigh, or hands on the hips. So you're going to inhale first, and as you exhale, you're going to lift your back knee off the mat and come to high lunge. Perfect. See, the front thigh didn't move. So inhale, back knee down. Exhale, back knee up. There we go. Good. So we're going to do 5 of these just to start. So set your right leg up, and every time you lift your back knee, your left glute has to be working. Use your arms either to press away from the front knee or to press away from the wall. And part of the incentive here, especially if you're using a block with a little more structure, is to make sure that when you're lifting your back leg, you're pushing your front thigh firmly against the block so that it doesn't drop and land on your foot. So you're going to do 5 of these on the right, 5 of these on the left. And on the last one, what I want you to do is keep your back knee lifted, actually. So you're going to do 5 dynamic variations. And the last one, hands on the hips, and push your back foot away. So push away from the back foot. Maybe that's a better way to think about it, so that you're like launching your front leg right into the block. And then use that to help you pull your torso back away from the wall a little bit more. The thing is, you got to get the block situated on that perfect part of your shin so it doesn't agitate your knee. You can switch. So again, you want to make sure that your bottom toes, front toes, they do touch the wall. They're not up on it. And you get the block against that tibial plateau. Hands on the hips or on the front thigh. Inhale, back knee lowers. Exhale, back knee lifts. And because your front leg is right in front of your eyes, look at how much your front thigh is moving. So in a way, you have to make sure that it barely moves at all. And this requires a little bit more sophistication in the way that your back leg drops and lifts. On the last one, after you do the 5 on the left, keep your back knee lifted for 5 breaths in total. And at the same time, use your back leg to press away from the mat so that all the force is being projected against the block, like you're literally trying to crush the block itself. Good. And then we'll switch sides, and doing it for the second round, I'm going to show you something different. We'll add a little extra something. So let me actually do this real quick. Okay, so you have your block right at the front shin. Again, right at that tibial plateau. Your back knee is on the ground, toes curled. So when you lift your back leg, the back knee doesn't just go up vertically. That's what you kind of have to understand. When it lifts, in order to keep the front thigh from moving, it has to go back and up. That's on the lift, and when it goes down and forward. So you can just kind of watch the pathway of my back knee as I do this. So it lifts, you see, it doesn't just go vertically, it goes back and up. And as it lowers, you have to kind of help guide your left knee forward. So it does definitely capture more of your attention and your effort than the previous version. So go ahead, let's start with that. Right leg forward, block right at the shin. So you're going to do, again, just 5 of these. And then the last one will add even more extension into the system. Good. Make sure that you're exhaling slowly when you lift. And when you get to your final lift, either keep the hands on the hips if you want to go a little further, take your arms overhead, keep the back leg active, keep projecting your weight into the block, and start to see if you can add an actual back bend to the system. So see how far you can bend yourself back, which is not going to be easy, by relying on that forward slamming stability into the block. Beautiful. Yes. Yes. Okay. And then inhale, bring your left knee down, bring your block down. And you might notice, as Michelle noticed, it's hard to keep your back foot from sliding away from the wall, which is true. You know, whatever you have, if you want to put on like some shoes and do it that way, you want to put on some construction worker boots so your feet don't slide, booties, 5-finger shoes, those are my favorites. And so nothing is ever going to be perfect, but just the way that you can do this, you can start to develop that intelligence of isolating extension so that it doesn't have any implication on the front hip. So again, we do 5 of these. The exhale is when you lift the knee, because the exhale is when we get to really contract our core, we get to recruit our abdominal muscles, and so the system is by default more stable on the exhale. Now on the last lift of your knee, hands on the hips, or if you're going further, take your arms overhead, lift your shoulder blades up, and then producing as much impact into the block as you can, start to reach your torso and your arms back. Beautiful. 5 breaths in total, so maybe 3 more to go. Oh yes, good. And then bring your back knee down, take the block down. Now lay down on your abdomen on the mat. Make sure that your head's towards the front of the mat, or towards the back, I guess, it doesn't matter. As long as your head and your feet are not in the same place, that'll be a good start. Okay, so set your hands up underneath your shoulders. We're going to play with a little bit of cobra pose. And I made kind of a mistake when I said that. So it's not right underneath your shoulders, because this is narrow. Stay in line with the shoulders, even if you want to take your hands wider. So just as long as they're in line. Like theoretically, I guess you could set your hands up this wide, but that's not really going to be that useful. But it's not going to be dangerous. This can actually get dangerous. Okay, so plug the fingertips down, point your toes, bring your legs all the way together, because we usually have them apart for Cobra, but we're going to see what it means to keep them together and how that reflects in the quality of the bend. So toenails press down, glutes stay active, grab the floor tightly with your finger and start to pull the floor backwards, so in turn you're trying to slide your chest and your torso forwards. Good. So come up a little bit slower. Bend your elbows. Right there. So once you come to about halfway of your capacity, reinstate your butt, press your pubic bone to the floor, and as you slowly start to lift higher, make sure that no matter how high you go, your pubic bone never comes off the floor. And if that means you have to keep your elbows bent for a while, And a while could be anywhere from a month to 15 years. That's okay, because there's no rush to just get to some final conclusion of a pose. There's no rush for that. It's only about quality of movement. It's only about precision of movement. That's the beginning and the end of what yoga is here to do for us. Next exhale, slowly come on down. And in between these poses, between sets, let your forehead relax. If you want, you can turn your head to the side. That's never a problem, as long as you have like a minimum flexibility of your neck, at least as far as rotation is concerned. And how do you know you have the minimum requirement of flexibility? Is if when you turn your head, your side of the ear and your whole side of the face can be flush with the ground without any pain, without any feeling of agitation in the neck, without any provocation on any other tightness in the body, then you know your neck is a little bit more, then your neck is okay with it. Otherwise, forehead on the ground, so the back of the neck is elongated. Second set, keep your hands exactly as they are, and let's see how much more development this can get. So bring your legs together, feet together, press your toenails down, engage your glutes. First, see if you can make contact with your pubic bone. So you cut that right into the floor, and then you start to pull with your arms. It's not just project, it's like your chest is ejecting out of the body. So send it forward as you come up. And the entire time that you lift, keep your shoulders down away from the ears and keep pulling with your hands. So even at your highest and tallest in this cobra, there's still this access to pulling yourself forward. Pubic bone on the ground, close your eyes, 5 more breaths. Now the glutes just take care of your spine from the back. We still have to take care of the glutes, of the lower back from the front, and that entails the lift of your lower belly. So there's like an imaginary arrow of movement from the pubic bone up, an imaginary arrow of movement from the tailbone down to the heels. Next exhale, lower down quietly. And again, between poses here, either turn your head or forehead down, relax your legs, make sure that your heels turn out to the sides, that your knees turn in. And it's always nice with this posture, the posture in between back bends, prone back bends, to have this kind of internal rotation of your legs, because the internal rotation starts to create more space in your sacrum, which most of the time, for most of us, tends to kind of collide. The sides of the pelvis, the ilia, start to collide onto the sacrum and just kind of trap it from moving better. Okay, now third time is a charm. Hands back underneath the shoulders. Now, if you were able to make it to a fully straight elbow position before, you can step your hands in a little bit even closer. Not towards one another, but closer, like towards the bottom of the ribs, closer to the chest. So you start to pull yourself forward, grip your toes on the ground, engage your butt, press your pubic bone, and as long as you have a very tangible sense of sending your spine, of elongating it while lifting, there's really almost no maximum to how much you can lift. Just make sure your shoulder blades always go through this kind of scooping, down and back, down and back. And that down and back lets your chest emerge. Keep your glutes active, keep your toes active, close your eyes. 5 more breaths. How are your fingertips doing? How are they or not participating in the action of this back bend, and how well are they pulling on the floor? The most important parts of any foundation is only the parts of the body that make contact to the external environment. 1 more breath in, and exhale, fold down, and rest again. Heels out, toes in, forehead down, relax. Okay, now place your hands underneath your shoulders, press yourself back to child's pose. And then stay in this child's pose. We'll stay in it for about a minute. So it's a very good, you know what, let's actually set it up a little bit differently. So keep your legs as they are in child's pose, but place your forearms on the mat right in front of you. And lift your chest up. So it's almost like you're blending Sphinx pose and child's pose in the same posture. So your butt's still on the heels, keep your fingers well spread, and then first, lift your elbows up and try to extend your chest forward. So you come into child's pose from a place of extension, and then imagine getting your chest way, way out beyond the body as you fold down. So while folding down, you're constantly pulling yourself down, and that way you come in with even more length than before. And at the very end, let your head drop, let your arms relax. And that means that the normal flexing curve of the spine in child's pose has more length in it. So to unwind from the back bending that we did, we unwind with just a little bit of flexion, but the flexion has a strong element of length and space within it. So you just let your body get heavy, almost like you're growing roots into the floor, into the mat. And that whole concept of interiorization, of attending to the internal sphere of our life and our conscious experience, what story does your practice say now? Once your practice is finished and you've gotten through all the hard work, and now you're just kind of down regulating everything. You're slowing down the heart, you're turning down the blood pressure. And that way, our practice always has a story to tell, depending on the kind of practice we do. And that story can only be accessed from that internal domain of existence. And then you can slowly roll up. For the final minute here, finish off with whatever pose seems to be most relevant to you. So you can do shoulder stand. That's another good recovery from back bending. Or you can just go into a supine twist if that's more on the menu for you right now. And so what Michelle is doing is kind of a nice blend of both. So you have to, let's just show them how to get into it from the front. So what Michelle does is she comes into plow pose first, pretty much, and then she gets a block at this tall setting, and she sets it up with her hands where she thinks the middle of her pelvis, her sacrum basically, where is going to land. And then she comes out, and then once her pelvis lands on the block, she can then still adjust it with the hands. But the main idea is that the block never touches the low back, but it's not too far down on the glutes. What you want to try to set up is that your sitting bones, so Michelle's sitting bones are here, they're level with the ground. So your whole pelvis is level. That way, the maintaining of your legs in this vertical position isn't much of a problem. And if you were doing this against the wall, which is definitely a very worthwhile idea, you just have the back of your legs against the wall, you still have your pelvis on a block. If you have a couple of bolsters, you can set up on a couple of bolsters too. And this gives you the benefits of what shoulder stand does, which is a little bit of neck flexion, a little bit of hip flexion, and being inverted. But it still gives you less activity than a normal shoulder stand because you don't really have to use your arms. You just keep your legs from falling. And therapeutically, in the Iyengar yoga tradition, Viparita Karani is always used along with half plow for any stress effects, any tension, anxiety. So it's known to be something that pacifies kind of primal energy in the body, right? Energy and tension that hasn't really been channeled towards anything specific and functional. And in a way, that's kind of what anxiety is. Anxiety is just a prevalence of energy that doesn't have anywhere to go. So once you come out of the pose, you can keep your knees bent in Shavasana, or you can straighten your legs, however your lower back feels about it. Get something to put over your eyes, and then something to put under your head. And I've been describing this over the years, is that when you have something to put underneath your head, it's not like you want your head lifted that high. You just really want about an inch or two lift in the head so that the back of the neck can have a little bit more space and length in the front. But it's just a little bit. It's enough to shift the normal state of affairs. And what's the normal state of affairs for a lot of us is it's a part of the upper cross syndrome, something that Vladimir Yonda developed that I've talked about, which is it's hypertensive posterior neck muscles. So hypertonic extensor muscles in the neck is what we want to lengthen when we put something underneath the head. And keeping your eyes covered, then let your nervous system understand that this is rest time, because when it's dark, that's when that message of restfulness is at its best and at its clearest. So then you're on your own, enjoy the rest of your rest as long as that lasts, however much time you have. Remember, you are the one that made this practice happen today. And don't let yourself leave practice without taking credit for the fact that you chose to do something that is so good for you, even though it wasn't easy. And the fact that this practice competes with other things we could have been involved with that is easier. Thank you for joining us again today. Wish you a beautiful rest of your day or night, and I will see you soon. Namaste.